introducing strangeness in our ESL teaching. First, if Gregory speaks of how ESL students need to lose their strangeness, not only to the new language but to strange culture through experiencing everyday new routines and ways of life. Viewing Joseph's pedagogical movement from an anti-racist theoretical perspective asks us to attention within urban educational setting. While cultural inclusivity is desirable, the question remains, how do we take up cultural difference in a way that does not transcribe its strangeness and reproduce the normalness of the mainstream culture? Second, advocate acknowledging diversity within teaching staff, but cautions that teachers should not be regarded as speaking for or representing their entire cultural or ethnic group, nor should they be on call to perform as part of the school multicultural offerings. Rather, these teachers bring alternative ways of coding that can provide greater point of access for students in developing broader worldviews. In order for minorities students feel culturally validated, inclusion must go beyond representation of specific cultural practices and toward more holistic approach to educational that understand all of the children as coming from backgrounds that bring specific and valid knowledge to the school. Third, in this article is premised on a belief that interaction between teacher and student are never neutral, let alone interaction between native speaker and English as second language student. Based on researcher experience as classroom teacher and teacher educator, it is clear that more than ever, new teachers need to come to grips with how to accommodate their program to ESL students. New teacher needs a sensitivity to what it means to enter a new foreign culture with its own set of custom, value, assumption, and other. And for example, one of the most effective school model for ESL students is premised on a two-way partnership with students and their parents from varied backgrounds, collaborating or teaching native speakers about their culture, their tradition, and their language. Language therapy becomes a resource, a tool for students to learn from each other as opposite to more of a reductionist model whereby ASL students to need assimilates into their host culture. Culture and teacher education theory. The researcher operates from the perspective that speech and cognition are mediated by social interaction and cultural practice. What this means in practice is that language, literacy, and discourse derive from social and cultural practice. The researcher study promotes a greater understanding of the fonts of knowledge. The researcher bring to classroom, and what is more, our students bring to classroom. If Gregory considered the role of social context in literacy, she notes that children learning to read may or may not identify with what is being said depending on the underlying cultural assumption in the text.
Part 3. Finding. Analysis individually and as a group. We isolate some key and recurrent terms in the data to our overall aim of harnessing culture to literacy work with ESL students. Collectively, we agreed on the following terms: culture-language nexus, literacy shaped by context, literacy cultural community, multimodal literacy strategies, and the SHE ESL student. Next. Culture and language nexus. How has culture played a role in your ESL teaching? Teachers were more likely to point to the students' perceived cultural backgrounds than their own. Teachers attempt focus on creating an inclusive classroom through cultural celebrations and using diverse material such as books and toys. They also related it to their experience of their cultures while they were traveling. For instance, Mark, a British teacher with 10 years experience explains, I guess you try to find connection in stories and you are reading travel experiences I have had to where the students have been as well and making connection there. Indian links between other cultures. We have got a lot of Muslim students here, so it's usually easy to discuss the tradition that those students have and share them with the other students from other cultures that are in the classroom as well. Those are some ways. Context literacy operates from the perspective that speech and cognition are mediated by social interaction and cultural practice. We saw in the data recurring themes states to the notion of literacy, shaped by schooling especially by context more generally. Linking up words to a picture does not help if the student has no reference to it in their own language. A Creatory 1996 page 8. Fifi Edward claims that school must demonstrate a serious commitment to diversity if students and their parents are not to feel included. Edward 1999, page 15 to 16. Suzanne, another student teacher, underscored the fact that language learners are not always sharing the same cultural context when she was reading a book to one of her students. When I was trying to read a book to one of my students and it was pointless trying to decode, I can't even remember what it was now, but he did never seen it before. So you did try, it's like okay, but get the picture and they were just like, I don't know what is it with the picture. And you can't even use the picture, right? So then it's like, well, this is kind of important to the books. The entire subject is on the particular thing. I don't know what it was. It was an dinosaur, obviously. It was an animal. I think, and he did never seen this animal before. This whole book was about this animal, so he was not getting anything out of this book. He couldn't decode the word. He couldn't use the picture as a sport. So why are we reading this book to this little boy? It doesn't make any sense.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I want to explain number 3, lived experience as key to ESL teaching. Personal experience emerged as a theme in fostering ESL teaching and secondary language learners' connection to literacy learning at school. As an ESL learner all your life, she may feel that she has been categorized in a way that makes her less than a native speaker. Naturally, sounds and experience at a formative stage in our development affect her sense of self, while her struggle to use the language as a native speaker of English can be considered natural if we conceive of standard English as the only appropriate language within our schools. Let us to consider how schools may be implicated in fostering a sense of linguistic inferiority and in those who do not sound native. A As a non-native speaker, Chime is able to provide the insight that language competency in students can sometimes mask a lack of understanding. Well, another, while another candidate believed that students sometimes fool teachers into thinking that they are learning. Chime points out that this is a coping strategy. Melissa, a teacher, feels that her experience as an Ukrainian as a second language learner has informed her pedagogical approach. As a student, Melina found that being exposed to the contextualist vocabulary did not facilitate her learning. And then number 4, multimodal literacy strategies. Multimodality represents a view of meaning making wherein we understand text as made up for multiple modalities that can be written but equally visual, gestural, and as having texture, and these modalities are combined in ways that facilitate our meaning making. ESL students were more multimodal than linguistic, so the use of visual materials was helpful to new language learners and visual learners alike. Susan, a student teacher, observed that her use of manipulatives in math class was helpful for both the ESL and native English speaker students. Likewise, integrating art into the program seemed to benefit all students. And then Ruth, a teacher, says, and in fact, the ones that are strongest are the ones who are able to use drama and music and storytelling, and they all love it. It is not an ESL strategy. It is just a really good teaching strategy. And then Rita, another teacher, connects the question of culture to how she can help kids connect with the dominant culture through song or poems, but it helps them become familiar with the language and how the language sounds and the rhythm of the language and the grammar of the language. Okay, I think enough for me. The next material will be explained by
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mukrim Al-Ghozali. I want to continue the presentation about findings. The next finding is literacy culture community. It means that these three things have a connection. For the students who come from various different language and cultural background, it is important for the school to provide the students a program where they can interact with other students. In Walker Public School, there is an ambassadors club. It is an example of interactive practice because it provides the students with an opportunity to identify their own abilities and work toward a common goal with the other students. Not only for the students, it is important to forge a relationship or building bridge with the community and parents, especially for student teachers and teaching assistants who can speak multiple languages, to communicate with students' parents, to avoid misunderstanding any information given to the students. It is important because the information that is given to the students sometimes become different when the students explain to their parents. The next finding is the shy ESL students. Some of the students maybe are not confident with themselves. It is maybe caused by many things such as culture, gender, and personality. Students become silent in their class activity because it caused by several things. The first, lack of commitment to bilingualism. The students are not interested with the class activity, so they tend to be silent in their class. To overcome this problem, the teacher use interesting media to encourage the students in learning. Next is the teacher only focus on the weaker skill rather than their strengths. For example, a student named George has difficulties in oral proficiency, but he is good at writing. It will be better if the teacher maximizes his dominant skills. Besides, the teacher can guide his weaker skill. Next is a focus on monolingual English literacy. In this problem, the teacher use a multilingual context of literacy, or in other words, the teacher should make sure that all of their students are understand with the materials. The next is the dominance of mainstream cultural content. It is important for the teacher to pay attention to the minority students who come from minority culture. The teacher can inform or discuss about minority culture in class activity.
Okay, the next, implications for practice. Implications from this journal set out in this study to make a clear, tangible link between cultural practice and language acquisition in an effort to help student teachers in teacher education programs to understand that ESL teaching is not governed solely by linguistic competence, but it is a complex process of identity formation in a new place. The purpose of the complex process of identity formation in a new place is that no matter where students come from and from whatever culture they are in a class, adapt to other students' cultures and create a new atmosphere with mutual respect. Okay, next. English as a second language teaching cannot be separated from culture, and they are interrelated. In learning ESL in the classroom, the teacher can use material about culture as a link for learning. Example on journal. Teachers make use of culturally diverse materials such as Middle Eastern themed book about China and India. Okay guys, that's all explanation from group 3. We do apologize if we have some mistake. And thank you for your attention. And wabillahi taufiq hidayah, walidawlinayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.